G'day, welcome back. This is the next video in my series on World Chess Championship blunders, and I think now I'm going to blitz these last couple out, the Ding Nepo match and then the Ding Gukesh match, simply because I'm quite familiar with these matches. I mean, there's been a lot of videos, really great videos, Daniel King, Nakamura, whoever, covering all these games and all these blunders, and I'm sort of covering material which is pretty well known. I haven't found it quite as interesting as doing the matches from the 50s and the 60s where I didn't have much familiarity with candidates or the matches themselves and the blunders in them. So that's why I might get 3 of these videos in quick succession, and then I want to go back and do the candidates as I mentioned in a previous video. Lots of interesting stuff in candidates from that period. That being said, let's have a quick look at this match between Ding and Neopmniachtchi. The reason it's not including Carlsen stepped down, and then what happened is we had the candidates match where, switch across to the capture screen, basically it's sort of known before the candidates at the top 2 would play for the World Chess Championship. That in itself was kind of interesting, because when a similar thing happened when Fischer didn't agree to terms, was that Karpov was given the title. I guess it would have been more difficult then, because Karpov had won the semi-final against Korchnoi, so there wouldn't be much point in playing Korchnoi again. Well, he did then play him 2 times later in later World Chess Championship matches. So it was kind of like he was the winner, and that was it. But in this one, they said, well, okay, we want a World Chess Championship match, so we will get the top 2 participants, and they will play for a match, which didn't work out very well for Nepo, worked out well for Ding. So let's have a look at the candidates. So there were these 8 participants. Nepo, Rajabov, because if you remember, he'd withdrawn last time because of COVID, and he was kind of ultimately proven right, so they put him in as the FIDE candidate. I think there were some threats there of legal action. I think it's fair enough. Duda, Perugia, and Caruana, as usual. Naka, Rapport, and Ding Loren. Karyakin, of course, Russia invaded Ukraine before or around that time, and the players like Nepo, who condemned that, were allowed to continue playing. Other people, not so much. So anyway, it's a good debate. You can see in terms of world rankings, number 1 ranked player is missing. Is Carlsen. You got 2, 3, 4, 8. There's obviously a few players missing, but that's sort of very similar blend of highly rated players. The worst rated player was 16, so that's a strong field, and it's got obviously the few usual suspects who would probably be regarded as favourites. Nepo wasn't really. It was more like Caruana, for instance, was thought to be the favourite going in. And let's have a look at the results here. And you can see Nepo just ran away with it. He was clearly the best player in the tournament, and you can see he was, taking advantage of all the extra prep he had done on the previous candidates and also the World Chess Champion match. So had the kills, had lots of ideas, smashed the field, 9.5, and then the fight for second was a little bit more interesting. You see it here. So there's Nepo, just ran away with it. And then going into the last round, Ding was actually behind Nakamura, and there was a famous game where Ding managed to beat Nakamura. Ding was white, and that's so that they switched places, and Rajabov made a bit of run at the end to come up +1. So you can see that Nepo clear out in front, and Ding Loren got the second spot. You can see the other one here was Caruana was also on a really good run here, and just fell away in the second half of the tournament. Sort of a bit of that's another one of his missed opportunities. So that was the candidates. So then we get to the match itself. Pictures. So it was one of these ones which were drawn 7-7, 14 games, and then Ding Loren won the tiebreaks. So he became world champion, and we'll just scroll down history of numbers, see if there's anything else here worth mentioning. Okay, and this is the other thing about it is that you've actually got much better coverage of the games themselves on the wiki pages. Okay, we'll get that out of the way. So there's the profile of the match. And although we're only going to look at 2 games, it did have some fairly significant blunders in it, which you're going to have to say affected the result. So out of this game, we're going to look at game 8, multiple blunders, both players. Wasn't a good game. Ended up a draw, kind of strange. And then we are going to look at game number 12, which was when Ding caught up. That's why it ended up a tie. But you can see that for most of the match, actually, the red lines, Nepo was mostly ahead. Ding caught him and then beat him in the playoffs. Let's now look at this game number 8. Of course, there's videos on this. Daniel King, Palpitis, go and watch them for a better coverage of the game. I'm just going to focus in on a couple of blunders here, which have relevance for the result of this game. Got the position up there. we just scroll forward, you can see that by playing g5, that cuts the protection of the knight on h4 from the queen. So black has to do something, and rook h8 is the main move here. In fact, the only really drawing move. So let's just go through that as a variation, just to show you what should have been played. Rook h8 protects the knight. f4. Now you can see that in a lot of these lines, black is very weak on the dark squares, and so that f4 move just opens up that diagonal take. Sit the knight on f6. That's a terribly strong outpost square, but still knight f3 check. Take off the knight. d7. Up to this point, yeah, not bishop a4. So you're thinking, okay, black's up material. And if you do bishop to a4, then the queen hops onto that diagonal and you're going to lose in very short order. So in fact, the correct move, I haven't got to get it up here, is to play queen to b8. Must take the bishop, get material parity, queen check, and this is going to be a draw. Knight comes back, possibly block the pawn. So that's the sort of continuation you can imagine. This is a very sharp position, as you can see, that both kings are not safe. So I think that we can imagine like black having at least a perpetual check in a position like this. If we go all the way back to this move, g5. Nepo took the knight, which is a losing mistake. Okay, so take back the bishop, and his idea was that allows him to retreat his knight to a better square. And rook d2. The problem now is that always got this threat. And with the rook there, it's terrible. Rook h8, got to oppose rooks, takes. You can see I've marked out there what white should do. White should oppose the infiltration of the black queen into the white position, and it's just totally winning. So let's just see if we did play rook d3. I didn't code it up. Rook d3. The queen comes down, is no good. See, rook d8 might be a natural move. Rook h3, drive the queen back. In fact, it's given best move is queen take h3. Queen take d5 check. Going to get killed on this diagonal. Got to play f6. Obviously losing. In this position, should have played the rook lift. Totally winning. Anyway, what Ding played was d7. Looks good too, but that pawn's going to get a bit overextended now. Still winning, but you know, a lot of the pressure's off. Game continuation, queen takes e5 check. That was always on the cards. Don't really want to take off queens because the bishop's not going to be good in this environment. So still has the edge, but it's reducing. You know, it's just checks to get a bit of time on the clock. And then queen to c7, maybe f6, queen f8, moves like that, and just try and hold position is the way to go. Possibly losing, but still a lot of fight in the position. What Nepo did is really clever. Actually, this is a speculative rook sack, which is like a Tal one. It's not actually right. And all that should happen here is that Ding should take the rook. Let's do that continuation first. Take the rook. Let's see how this goes. Computer line here. Check. Block with bishop. Check. Block with bishop. Check. Okay. Block with the rook. Check that side. Move the king. Check. King's moving up d3. Check. Block with the rook. Take the bishop. In fact, it's very strange that is the only winning move. It just shows you how complicated it is. Now check, and then you can see what happens is the king is hiding in the corner, and now it's winning. Right, so it's quite difficult in time trial to understand that that's sort of the continuation, because otherwise it's just going to be a perpetual check over like this area with the king somewhere here. But if we can get the king to there, then you're away from the checks. You got a pawn on the 7th rank. Exchange up. Of course, that's totally winning. King didn't have time to calculate all that, so what he did is he said king d1. That should be okay. But now queen takes g5. Rook's defended now, so material's going to balanced. Trying to get the king away. Advantage is all gone now. Continue quickly through the end of the game. The advantage is all gone. There's a lot of pluses and minuses here, but there was enough counterplay. And here we are, drawn position, exchange into a drawn position. So that was game number 8. I mean, totally crazy. I mean, you could spend hours looking at those complications between move 25 and 35. I mean, I flicked over these positions here where actually this position e5 wasn't correct. Should have played knight d4 check. Strange move if you think about it. This line supposedly, and variation. Got take. I got the pawn back. And very strange situation. What, 6 pawns to 4. White has an extra bishop, but supposed to be drawn. That's game number 8. Ended up a draw. Ding could have won. And then we go forward to game number 12. Just let me get that set up. You can see the crazy chart here. Understand why this is a very, very messy game. A couple of messy games. I mean, We were complaining when we had Carlson beating Ariakan and Caruana in very dry matches, and now it's gone a bit the other way. Okay, so you can see that in that position, Pepper's had an advantage for quite some time. This is like +2. The winning line is knight f3, and then I've got to counter-check the bishop, take a rook off, take a rook, back, in back, take bishop. White's got to have a lot of trouble here. Holding, just defending. G4, takes G4, takes G4, queen takes G4, queen takes G4, H takes G4. So where do we end up with this? B3. We'll keep going. It's one of these nice endgame tactics. Try and bring the knight back. B3. Can't take it. To get back in time, I've lost D4, F2, and you've got a couple of passports. Anyway, so that's just a nice line. Didn't play that. He played rook to G8. The rook's protected, and actually bishop takes G6 is fine. Didn't play that. Queen C6. And then now the next move is just an outright blunder. Should play knight F5, protecting the bishop. And then the pin on the G file means it can't be taken. Anyway, protected the bishop. All the advantage is gone now. This is what are these dots here? That gives up black's advantage. Should play knight F5 still. Continue for a while. So the game sort of, we're in this patch here. So all this tactics here, which was in Nepo's favor, is gone. And now we're going to sort of move forwards to the position where Nepo just blunders and loses the game. That's the move there. Right, so what can you do? We can do queen G5, we can do rook G8, we can do bishop D6, all those moves. The thing you've got to bear in mind is that there is a pretty nasty discovered check on this diagonal, right? So F5, rook takes E6, that's the move. And it's lost. King took off the knight. Check. Push the pawn. Nepo resigned. Why did he resign? Let's have a look. Let's say played F3, bishop F1, queen H6, rook E8. We're going to take the rook. C4 check. How weak the king is. Block. Check. In there. Check. E8. Oh, D7 mate. That's nice. So you're back to this position here. This F5 just shouldn't have played. Once again, a very complicated position. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, well, really 3 dots, but then you got a couple more. I mean, Nepo just fell apart around about move 33, lost his game, come back to even, and that's sort of, and then they played out 2 more draws, and Nepo lost in the tie breaks. Yeah, another wild game. These games, there's no control. I don't really understand them fully. I mean, you can go back and sort of have a look at videos by other people who do them in more detail. But I think the key here was this move right here, where rook G8, queen G5, bishop D6. Let's see what other lines we got. A5, queen E7, queen E8. There's all sorts of moves black could have played, which were even. But what he played was +5 to white straight away. We just sense that. Okay, cool. Fair enough. So that's that. That's the match between Nepo and Ding. And now we only have one more match to cover, the match between Ding and Gukesh. So we'll get onto that pretty soon. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching.